Thanks for that, Karen. Right, well, joining us now on Running It Straight, it's a man who, well, it's a cliche, doesn't need any introduction. He really doesn't. The voice of rugby league for so many years and the voice of State of Origin. He's called many big occasions over the years. He went through all of the Wally Lewis era and then into the Lockyer, Thurston, Cameron Smith era. He retired, hung the boots up at 99, and he's been very, very kind to give up some of his time to us here on Running It Straight this afternoon. It is, of course, the great Ray Rabs Warren. He joins us on the line now. G'day, Rabs.
How you going, boys? Nice to talk to you.
Hey, Ray, just off the bat, you've got Origin obviously kicking off tonight, but you've called it many times. What are the memories that flood in this time of the year for you, Ray?
Oh, probably my first Origin, which was back in 1989. I did a total of 99, and then I retired, and people are still scratching their head wondering why I would do that, but that's another story. But my first experience was alongside Darryl Eastlake, and I got the shock of my life because the producer was standing behind the commentators and we were doing 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and he kept hitting Darryl over the back of the head with a rolled up program, and I thought this is a fairly rough commentary box here, but there's been a lot of memories, fellows. I can't forget the miracle try. I pulled that word out of my hat. I don't know how I got it, but anyway, it's been played time and time again. I saw the magic of Wally Lewis for 10 years. The whole arena of Origin was, it was like the best day of the year.
Talk to us about how you sort of saw it changing from when you first started calling it, Ray, through the years. Was the intensity and the rivalry always there from the start, or has it just sort of developed over all these years and every single year it just sort of keeps building on itself?
No, I think if you want me to take you back to the genesis of Origin, it tells a story, and that is that back in the days of what we call the Interstate Series, it became quite laughable. It became a joke because in those days, the big leagues clubs here in Sydney, they would buy the good Queenslanders, and those Queenslanders then were obligated to play for New South Wales. So some of the score lines were embarrassing, and Senator Ron McCauliffe from Queensland gathered up Kevin Humphreys from Sydney and said, look, this has got to stop. And we've got an idea on the platter for this game called Origin, where you have to be, to keep it simple, you have to come from Queensland to play for Queensland, and the same for New South Wales. And so suddenly, and you remember it well, in 1980, the game started, and Arthur Beetson had been consulted by both those gentlemen, and he said, I don't think it will work. He said, I can't believe that I could play against my best friend, and you expect it to work. And about 10 minutes into the game, Arthur put one on Michael Cronin's nose, and suddenly Origin was off and running at a fairly hectic pace, and it was being played under, I'm not frightened to say, it was being played under a different rule book, I think, and much of it was over the top, really. I mean, it was nothing less than thuggery. Some of the matches I called, and I'm not one of those people that suggest we go back to the biff and the barge.
Come on.
No, I'm not. I'm not, because of the simple reason that I think under legislation and law, you'd be stupid if you turn a blind eye on making the game as safe as you can make it. You've only got to look at American football. They paid out, I think, $1 billion in compensation through the legal system. So you can't blame administration for trying to tidy the game up. But Origin has still got its luster. There's no doubt about that, and I don't think it's ever going to die, to be honest.
That's 43 years, Ray, and I remember it real well. We used to get the VHS here in New Zealand because we never had a thing called Sky then, and we have to play it a couple of days later, and it was about sharing it with your mates. Just take us back to those early days. The Chris Close battle when he basically took on the whole of the New South Wales team. That's down in Folklore. They still use him today. And that chat in the Queensland camp. What was it like watching those guys like Chris Close, Wally Lewis, the Nieblings, the Dowlings, all those guys coming against the professionals in New South Wales?
Yeah, well, you got to understand that a lot of those fellows were playing. They were playing club football up in Brisbane. The evolution of people like Lewis is quite stunning. I mean, he didn't necessarily play a lot of Winfield Cup, and they basically their preparation was playing for Wynnum Manly or for the North Devils or people like that. But you just rattled off a few of the names, and every time I listen to old tapes, Langer and Lewis, and then you've got Miles, and then you've got Close, and then you've got Taylor and Takiri and Willie Kahn and Michael Hancock, and God Almighty, they used to provide some wonderful exhibitions, and would nearly always start outsiders. To be honest with you, whoever frames the market, I one day want to meet up with him and buy shares in his company.
I think I saw somewhere actually that Queensland tonight are at $2, which is the lowest they've ever been since 2016, which is hard to believe, Kempy, given that they've actually won it a couple of times over the last few years. Ray, in terms of you commentating Origin, you've obviously commentated grand finals, you've commentated internationals and other very, very big matches. What was it like on game day calling an Origin game, and what was the crowd like? How did it differ from, say, a grand final?
Fairly similar. Yeah, it's no use me saying anything else. I mean, a full stadium is not just a dream for the players and the promoter. It's an absolute dream for a commentator. The biggest help I would get from any commentary would be having a full house, because you need the crowd. You need to know when the crowd are excited. If they're excited, you should be excited. If they're not, why are you screaming and shouting when the crowd's not even interested? It's just a take it up for 5 and kick. I mean, that's not necessarily the most entertaining game of football, but the crowd meant so much to me, and anything that was bursting at the seams, grand final, international test match, or state of origin, that was what I enjoyed most. But of course, you could cut the air. It was electric. It was beautiful. But from a personal point of view, they used to basically govern my excitement level.
Hey, Ray, look, if you go through the years, and I rattled a couple off, Beatson, Close, you said Miles Meninga, you throw Lewis Langer, you go over Joey Johns, and then all of a sudden the Newbury come on, Cam Smith, Slater, Cronk. Who has been the best in Origin over the 43 years that you've seen?
I think I've probably answered this question a million times, but when you dominate something, Tony, for 10 years, let's call it a decade, it might have been 11 years, when you're absolutely dominating and winning 8 Man of the Match awards in that decade, it's very hard to go past the king. And I repeat, a lot of those fellows, they weren't playing Winfield Cup at the weekend. In fact, I remember first seeing Wally Lewis when he was sitting on the bench. I think a fellow called Norm Carr was the number 6 for Queensland, or combined Brisbane, I think it was, in the Amco Cup. And a fellow called W. Lewis came off the bench. But look, there's been some wonderful players. You mentioned most of them. Cameron Smith, he was dominant. He was a professor dressed as a footballer. But Wally Lewis is my answer. It's not difficult to say that.
Yeah, no, and a view shared by a lot of people here. Rabs, just before we let you go, I remember, I'm not sure if it was an NRL game, I'm fairly certain it was Origin, but I think it might have been Sterlo who, after doing a pre-game sort of comment, asked you who you were supporting, and you said, I don't support anyone, put me down for rugby league. Now that you're not calling the games, are you able to tell us whether you were a blue or maroon across the years?
I'm really happy you asked me the question, because I prided myself on trying to be unbiased. I knew that I was born and bred in New South Wales. I knew that, but I defy you, to pull out any match, any Origin match anyway, where I didn't try desperately to recognise both sides equally. And I had people, from Queensland, particularly radio and television interviews, saying, "Why don't you give New South Wales why don't you give Queensland a fair go?" And I said, "Look, why don't you get your own commentary team together up there and go to Channel 9 and you do it yourself?" Because I said, otherwise, for me to be absolutely trying to appease you, I should live on a houseboat in the middle of the Tweed River, because that's the border, just for those that don't know. But I didn't want to live in a houseboat in the middle of the Tweed River just to qualify for being unbiased as a commentator. Look, there have been times when I've been thrilled by people like Brad Fittler and people like Brett Mullins, but equally nobody has championed Billy Slater more than I have, and Darren Lockyer and Wally Lewis. So I mean, I'm not saying you're accusing me of that, but
well, great answer.
I was going to say, Rabs, the fact that I've actually had to ask you the question probably shows that over the years you have been so unbiased. So it's a credit to you.
Well, I'm proud of that. I really am, and I don't think I ever bagged a player, and I don't think I bagged too many people at all. Maybe I got on the back of the referee occasionally because I had a fair knowledge of the rules. But anyway, that's about me. It's about tonight. There'll be a good game. I've got no doubts about that. I did the last one there in Adelaide in 2020, which Queensland won, and that bookmaker bloke, he thought that they had no hope, but they won 18-14. It's a cricket ground, as you know, so there's a bit more pressure on the kickers. But that night, Queensland, they just played that simple old Origin game. Hang on to the ball, no errors, kick early if you're coming out of your own zone, chase the ball like hell, and then bash them and work for a mistake, and then bash them some more, and then maybe we'll do something a bit fancy. But that's their methodology. You watch it. It'll be on again tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez, I think you should have took on coaching, Rabs, with that analogy there, not commentating. But look, thanks a lot for joining us on Running It Straight this afternoon. It's always fantastic to talk to you and dip into the memory banks of Ray Warren, the voice of State of Origin. Actually, the voice of rugby league has still got you firmly imprinted in my mind anyway, Ray. Thanks a lot. You go well today, and thanks for joining myself and Sammy Hewat on Running It Straight.
Okay, Tone. Thanks for talking to me, and thanks for those nice words.